Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you so much for joining me. I was before you came on, I was just telling everyone that I'm getting a bit nervous and what I am trying to do now is like control using the breathing exercises to kind of bring
Oh,
down my
yes.
weight.
Oh, man. Deep breathing. I mean, really. Okay, I'll tell you what, I need to put a book in front of the iPad so that we are, because I feel like I'm not at the right level. And it looks like you're
So
just talking to the top of my head. So I'm going to try and just, all right. All right. There we go. Okay, is that better? Do I look better?
yeah, yeah. Are
My
you
legs
are
are,
you
yes.
are you okay? Are you settled? Because you just come from another life. Was
Yeah,
it
no, I'm
what
super settled. I'm doing a a really wonderful project with Facebook, and Facebook are they have decided to find a way in which to bridge all the gaps that we have in mental health by asking many of us here in Singapore, a few different people, to share tips and stories and resources from our own mental health journey. So that has been
right?
really fantastic. I mean, I feel really super psyched to be a part of that. So over the next 4 weeks, every once a week, there's going to be either a video or a chat or something like that, where I'll be sharing different aspects of how I got to where I am in my mental health journey. So I'm a mental wellness, because I really think mental wellness is what we should be talking about. Because when we say just mental health, it's just such a small part of things, and it just feels like
Yeah.
it's over the head. And one of the things we were talking about is a mind body connection. So breathing is a mind body connection. So
Yeah, it's very important because I was just talking to someone yesterday about how now when people talk about mental health, it just straight away relates to illnesses.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah,
think
but we
there's
need to
just
talk.
we need to talk much broader. I mean, that's what your platform is about, because I think, if we what the little that is spoken about is actually why we may be responding and reacting to certain things, and then going backwards to find out when we first began to respond and react in that way, without it necessarily being a much more serious mental illness.
Hmm.
So it's really, wellness is the whole thing. It's mind and body and all of those things, and to be able to kind of find our way through that becomes difficult because there's just so much labeling.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Right. So thank you so much for everybody that's joining us, just so that everyone knows what we are doing over here. I'm I'm Marilyn from Turnique. I think most of this might be, people that follows you. So all of you might have known today we have Anita with us as one of our series. And this part of our series that we started in September was also try to connect with different people to talk about different topics, mental well-being, and even in a bigger picture about what are some of the things that can affect mental wellness. And today we have Anita here basically to talk about, her journey, how she explore and find her own voice. Because I mean, I know about you because of a lot of things that you have advocate for. Like I see your face on like when you share about migrant workers, when you're talking about something. So I find that I wanted to approach you because it's so impressive and it's so inspiring how you know where your heart desire. And I think that's something that a lot of people are struggling as well. So maybe would you be able to share with us a little bit more about, your journey of finding your voice and
Yeah.
how, yeah, how did you get to who you are today?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say a huge thank you, because to whoever is watching us right now, when you contacted me, Marilyn, I didn't know anything about Hey Turnique, and I went to look at it and I thought, wow, this is so well realized, and there's just so much compassion and so much empathy in this platform, and also the way that you're putting it together, simplifying language and the experience. I thought this is really great, and I didn't know anything about it, but I was like, yes, I want to be involved, and I want to be able to come and have this chat with you. Thank you so much for asking me about my journey to find my voice, because the irony of my voice was that for the longest time, it wasn't my voice. It was what I thought my voice was. Having been a television host for a number of years and, standing on stage as an MC, I was always telling somebody else's story. And I was quite comfortable and happy with that for the longest time until I began to realize that that wasn't enough. There was something else bubbling up inside of me, and I didn't know or have the guts to kind of go out there and kind of say those things. And also I didn't really have the avenue for it. Because, I mean, the corporate event that you're emceeing is not the avenue for it, And so I realized that something needed to change in my life. And, I was on Facebook Live earlier talking about crisis is ripe. It's the time for where you realize that it's got to give. And whatever the thing is that has to give will always come up. And I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago when I actually stopped doing as much television work. It was a conscious decision for me that I felt like, I don't understand why am I telling these kind of sort of semi-fantasy stories when I'm so much more interested in actually when the camera stopped rolling and I would talk to the guest about something else completely different, And I thought, where's the avenue for this, And that avenue wasn't coming at the time. So I started to move more into doing live work and being on stage a little bit more in the capacity of like a facilitator or being drawn more towards causes and all of those things. And I know that this was just my journey to kind of see, where do I fit in all of this? What will I use the gift? And the gift is to have the voice and to have a platform. What am I going to do with all of this now? And I would say over the last 3 years, it's been a journey to basically come home to myself. Because it's one thing, I think, to be an advocate for things that you believe in, but it's another thing to be able to advocate for things in your voice and in your unique capacity and with the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions that you have. It's very easy to sort of just take on a cause and say, yeah, that's what I believe, and what you're seeing, across the world right now is that we're all so much more aware. But because of the fact that a lot of people are quite a little bit afraid of the mob and very afraid of the cancel culture that's out there, it's like, again, people are being forced into boxes to agree with things, even if they might have a slightly alternative viewpoint. If you're not with me, you're against me, that kind of thing. And I feel like I've already experienced this, like, throughout my career in terms of being able to verbalize and speak my truth. I was always speaking somebody else's truth. I was always sort of making a story out of something, and it gave me a sort of false sense of security and idealism, But what do I really believe? What do I really think? And how am I going to speak? And quite often now what I find is that where it used to be a bit nerve-wracking to kind of like, well, actually, this is what I really believe. I'm becoming more and more grounded in that because I know that my point of view is not the one point of view that is going to save the world or destroy the world. I mean, my point of view is a point of view, and I can be wrong. I can not know everything. I can be corrected. But it's all a form of learning. As you know, in the last 6-8 months, there are so many big things that have happened in the world, right? With Black Lives Matter, with the way things are going in the United States right now at the elections, with COVID-19, all of these things. And it just kept coming home to me that sometimes what we're doing to each other is that even when we want to have and be very savvy and very politically correct and to be very much part of what is going on in the world, we're still trying to tell other people to shut up and not listen to our viewpoint. So for me, I'm somewhere in the middle of all of this. It's like I don't have very extreme viewpoints. So where do I fit? And so I had to start the process of kind of saying, what do I really believe in? I do believe in that. I do believe in that. I'll give you a story. A few years ago, I was an ambassador for Pink Dot. And all along, I considered myself to be an ally. I was always an ally. I mean, if anything was happening to an LGBTQI person, I'm right there. I'll be getting out. I have things to say. This is what I believe in. But I realized I'd never really opened my mouth to the world and said, this is wrong.
Right.
And that was a big turning point for me to go in and kind of find out more information, know more things, understand more things, but still present it in the way that I want to say it, not the way that other people want to say it. And I think that's a super, super key thing. To speak with truth is to speak with your truth. And I think that the other part of speaking with truth is about listening really well. And for the other people who might know more, or who are more learned, or who are further down the route and have more agency and have learned more things, instead of each of us trying to annihilate one another and stamp each other out and say, you're a racist and you're a this and you're that, is there a way for us to turn around and kind of say, well, you're absolutely wrong, and can I show you? And if the person doesn't want to come along with us, can we then leave them to whatever they need to do and then keep moving down in the journey? Because sometimes I think what's happening is that we get very caught up with trying to convince everyone of our opinion and what we think, and this is the only right way. And it's not only quite exhausting, it also doesn't leave a lot of room for doubt. It doesn't leave a lot of room for learning. It doesn't leave a lot of room for change. And it doesn't really allow the good, the bad, and the ugly of all voices to enter into the playing field for us to know what are all these different kinds of ways in which people are thinking and talking and being. And it also doesn't allow us to kind of turn around and kind of say, well, can I show you a better way? You know, so I guess in a very roundabout way, what I'm trying to say is that when you don't know what you really believe in, if you believe what everybody else believes, then it's quite difficult for you, I think, to have a sense of yourself and a particular voice. Conversely, if you're so strident about your voice, and this is your voice, and if no one is listening and no one is doing the way that you want things to be done, it's the exact same thing, but it's the other side of the coin. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Sorry, Anita, could I just have 1 second? I'm just going to grab the blanket because I'm cold.
Yes, do it. I wish I could say the same thing. I'm just sitting in air conditioning, so I'm not feeling cold. Where's my blanket? I'm going to grab a cushion.
There you go. I'm comfy now.
Yeah. I think this whole thing about speaking the truth, what is the truth? You know, there's so many sides to the truth. There's good and bad, I think, definitely. There are bad things in this world. Racism is a bad thing in this world. But how do we empower change? You know, how do we get people to understand what that is if we are spending half of our time berating people for their stupidity, or finding the fault rather than finding what is the way through this? How can I educate this person in a way that doesn't tear them down and tear them apart? Of course, I realize that there are varying different types of people in this world, and then there are some people whom you just want to you feel like you want to break them with your bare hands because they're just so horrible in the way that they speak, and they're so disrespectful, and they're so abusive. And how are we going to combat all of that? But at the very basic level, can we, in the process of finding our voice, can we allow others to find their voices too?
I think what you cover a few points that I find really could kind of strongly resonate to what's happening around the world, how people is interacting with each other, or even relates how it affects people's mental health as well. You know, when people have got voices now, there is so many platforms and channels for us to voice out what we really feel really strongly for. However, there is a fine line in between. I can just say whatever I want because this is my voice, but behind it should come with the intention of love. It should come with compassion. When you wanna say this thing, you want to use your voice. Are you trying to use your voice to bring someone down? Are you trying to use your voice to make a stand? Or are you trying to use your voice to educate someone? I think the intention behind the voice is really important.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you're
and
saying, yeah,
I think it's what the often the problem is that this thing that we're on, right, is kind of so two-dimensional. We'd like to
mm,
believe that it's multidimensional, but it's really two-dimensional. Because every time I see conversations online kind of going south and you know, it's not wrong to jump in there and say, God damn it, you're a racist, you know, or why do you behave this way, or don't abuse people or whatever. But I also feel that sometimes if we were in a conversation and we were sitting around a table, would we leap onto that person who is saying something stupid, or would we give it some time to see, well, how stupid is it? And how can I, if you want to, set this person right in a way that is just less about destruction?
yeah, yeah. I think there is a saying that says that now a lot of time that when we listen to something, we are not listening to understand, but we are listening to comment on it.
Yeah, we're listening to catch people out sometimes, you know.
Yeah,
And how does that relate back to speak the truth and combat the self-doubt? Because we're sometimes so caught up with speaking the truth. You know, like, I gotta get the words out. I have to say it. I mean, I have to make a comment. I have to be part of this conversation. I need to get in there because I have this point of view and it's very strong for me and I gotta go there, you know? And I'm just wondering, would we be having different conversations? Would we be using our voices differently if we could step back a little bit and allow things to just evaluate things
mm,
in a broader, deeper way before we rush to judgment and use
yeah,
our voice just for judgment?
right. That's a very interesting point. Like we are trying so hard to get our voice out there sometimes that it, yeah, I can imagine, you know, in day-to-day living, sometimes in a meeting, you want to say something. Sometimes even if you don't have an opinion on something, you want to be part of it. It might be you want to be viewed as you have an opinion. It is not really a true voice, but what you want other people to view you in a sense. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that goes back to, what do you know of yourself? Uh, how close are you to the opinions that you hold? Are they your deepest held feelings? Are you
Mm,
able to articulate them? They don't have to be perfect. Can you articulate them? Is this the time and kind of place for it? I'm all for, of course, shocking people. I'm all for turning things on their head. I'm all for when you're sitting in a situation and you know that you must speak up and you cannot just be a silent ally. You should damn
mm,
well speak up. But I think sometimes it's also the way in which we speak up. I don't know that causing shame to anybody ever gets us the results that we actually want. It's temporary. You know, I think those people
yeah.
who are able to use their voice and really make you think and get deeper into yourself are the people who have a real gift. You
Mm,
know, I've never known any time where if someone has spoken to me or tried to shame me, that I have learned anything. I've just learned to shut up in those moments.
yeah.
But when there is enough of a capacity in the situation, be it online or in conversation or whatever, to say, I don't agree with you. I see where you're coming from, but I don't agree with you. This is what I feel. And then you give me the opportunity to kind of speak for myself. That feels like a much healthier exchange. And
Mm,
who knows what I will learn in this exchange, and how, just by virtue of the fact that you have been magnanimous with me and a bit compassionate about my ignorance, that might actually affect change more and allow me then to speak more truthfully and for there to be more truth in the world than if I was to put you down or you were to put me down or to say you're an idiot, basically. I mean,
mm,
when has calling anybody an idiot in any form ever changed anybody, right?
mm. Yeah. there's this writer, I really love her book, Brene Brown. Not sure if you've read her book before, but
Absolutely.
yeah, she talk a lot about vulnerability and how compassion just destroys shame, because when you are so compassionate, like what you say, it allows them to feel, all right, I actually have a safe ground to speak my voice, and there's not bringing each
Yeah.
other down. And so
Yeah.
back to your whole experience, like you were sharing about how you feel that all the time, or most of the time, you are conveying or you're speaking someone else's voice. What was it that ignite this realization of this void that you feel doesn't feel right, or
Yeah.
how then you get the courage as well to pivot to find your own voice in the journey?
Yeah. I think it was because I felt empty. I felt like the stories that I was doing and talking about, there was a sense of emptiness. It
Mm,
didn't really align with my personal values. I think that was it, really. My personal values was I didn't want to necessarily, and I think you're not sort of born with a set of values. You develop your values over time, through nature
mm,
nurture, right? And I realized that I was doing a lot of beautiful things, and doing a lot of great travel shows and inviting people to these beautiful places and all these things, but it didn't really align with my own values. And my own values was that I actually believe in equality. I'm anti-racist. I really believe in the value of our elders and their wisdom. And I just felt that a lot of the things I was doing were not allowing me to bring any of those parts of myself into the work. And so, as and of course, it was just serendipitous that at around about the time when I stopped working in television, television
mm.
started to change and social media became so big, and all of those things sort of started to happen. So it was like a nice moment for me to kind of pivot. Like, pivot is the word of COVID-19, I know, but it allowed me to kind of pivot off and say, well, at that time, where's my next place where I can speak my mind and speak my truth. And I tried to do that through some of the work that I do with advocacy and the charities that I was supporting, and I would, but it was always under kind of a mask, of glamour, or like there's something under it, but on the outside this is what people are expecting and this is what people need. And so over a period of time, because it's a process, other people's expectations became less and less important to me as I began to discover that I did have I don't just have thoughts. I actually had opinions that I could articulate in words, but that I didn't feel that only my opinion counted, but I would like to be able to contribute out there in some way and be of service to humanity. And I knew that I didn't have any other skills except the ability to articulate and to voice, but that I needed to get very intimate and reestablish what it is and the way in which I want to speak, and what do I really have to say, and where is it coming from? Is it all here? Is it here? Is it a mixture of these two things? And when you mix these two things, what does it sound when it comes out of my mouth?
So if it when you have this transition from feeling really empty, feeling that you're behind a mask and doing things that doesn't align to your values, how was it that you is there any kind of like practical steps that you have to advise anybody who are also feeling lost as well, to how do they sit down and think about or dwell in and explore their values and what they really feel strong about? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah. I think it's about discomfort. When we see things that are out there, I think we need to be triggered actually in certain ways to get our sense of um, who we are and what we believe in and what we don't believe in, and we even need to be triggered to know that we're numb to things. So I think it's that exposing yourself to as much of the world as possible, whether it's through writing and whether it's through conversations, and being curious and finding out what's your point of view, actually, what do you really stand for. And the thing is, this world, and especially social media, is just so it's very extroverted, you know. So if you're like quiet and a thinker and somebody who likes to be at home and all that, there's no, it feels like there's just like no space for you on this social media planet, you know. But I think it's really about what is the truth that you know, that you want to share, and how would you like to do it, and what is the most comfortable way in which you can get your feelings out there. So it could be that you write, it could be that you speak, it could be that when you're because we're talking specifically like so much about social media because that's where we're seeing so much of this, right? When you leave a comment, you know, in what sort of capacity do you leave the comment? Do you do it to just toto, you know, just to poke, or do you do it because you really believe that this is a comment that you really believe in, and this is a viewpoint that you really have, and you will still hold it? Because it's a really rough world out there. You leave one comment and 500 people are like, you're an asshole. So, you know, it's about what do you, these values that you hold, do they need a reworking? Are you well informed? How well informed do you need to be? What is your sense of what this world is about right now? Can you take a step back? Can you formulate an opinion? All of these things, I think, contribute to then being able to say, well, actually, that this is my value system and this is what I believe in, but I know that I can't be right about everything, and I accept that I need to learn. And so it takes you from fear or ego into a state of more surrender, that I look at the world with wider eyes and a wider heart, and then I am able to not jump into everything as a fight and jump into everything as an opportunity to show how clever and how woke I am, but that I can actually even follow things and read things and gain my own perspective. And here's the other thing, after talking all about social media, you don't actually have to share it.
Right.
You don't have to share everything that you feel, think. You don't have to jump into every conversation. You don't have to have a voice for everything. Why not save your voice for the things that matter?
Yeah.
You know? And that's, I know that's a really roundabout way, and it's not really like 6 things that you can do, but the way I found was that, okay, let's take these last few months, you know, thinking that, oh, I'm anti-racist, so I understand this, I understand that. But the more I delved and the more that was available to me, and the more I was like, wow, there's so many more things here that I thought I knew that I don't know, and I want to know. And I will take all these bits of information and I will put it all together, and I'll think like, same thing about mental health. Same thing about, you know, bodies, language that we use to talk about ourselves, the messaging that I put out there, even on my Instagram feed. It's like, where is all this coming from? Am I putting this out there because I want you to think this of me, or is this really me? And how do I know it's really me? Is that these words, they resonate with my heart and they resonate with my gut, and I'll stand by these words. Otherwise, don't put the words out there. Right. And that's what I mean about having to necessarily comment or be a part of everything. That's not finding your voice, you know? Yeah. But yeah. I say this and I realize that this is all the process that we go through, because it's literally like we need to bleh, and then we get, and then you're like bleh, again, and then you know you get triggered again, and then you're like, okay, I could do this a different way. And at different points of our life as well, we're liable to speak in different ways. I don't think that the way you spoke in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s is the same way you speak in your 50s and your 60s, because there's time and there's experience and there's wisdom. And then there's also the things that even at the age of 70, you may not know, and someone will present to you, and that will inform your voice as well. But at the end of the day, your voice is the soul of you, and I don't believe that we're born with anger and hatred and all of those things. I think we're born just super neutral, actually. And then conditioning applies itself, and our personal fears and shame and anger and the things that we feel have hurt us in our lifetime are the things that then we start to apply to our voice. And it's then what we're projecting out there is a version of who we are, but it's not really who we are.
Right. It provokes a lot of kind of like thoughts that I want to reflect. But is it something that it's innate for you to be very kind of self-reflective or being very mindful? Is it something that has always been natural for you, or is it something that you have developed through the growth, through personal, like some life experience that you find that that was one of the moments that make you start look? Because I strongly believe that we all have our voice inside somewhere, but sometimes through the growth journey, I think that there is no, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so there isn't, so there will be people that kind of like come forward and says, oh, I don't have a voice. And I believe that there is a voice inside. It's just how, like what you shared, sometimes you need to go through a certain things to realize that, oh, that is, if you don't if you don't wear a mask, you wouldn't have realized that I actually have that values that I feel so strongly about. But because there is an opposing value, now it brings out that, oh, right, I'm aware. So it needs to go through like growth. Um, yeah, so it's very interesting when you're talking about, through your life journey, how the voice kind of like come in different version as you grow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So is it something that you have you always been this aware or self-reflecting, or
Yeah.
it,
I'm trying to think back. I think as a kid, I was always curious. I was
mm,
always, yes, I think I was always interested in deeper things, even when I was very young. It's like, but at the same time, I had a tendency to sort of want to please everybody. So I never really gave that side of me much thought. And it was only
right.
much later on in life, through different things and that I suddenly realized, wow, actually I have this other kind of opinion. I have this other opinion, and I kind of it's not bad. It's quite an interesting opinion, and I got a
Mm,
chance to kind of express that through when I was a writer and when I've been on TV and all those things. I got this opportunity. But what I really, really, really wanted to say and how I really felt about the world, I was actually too afraid to really bring it all out. Because I was so busy kind of like caretaking everybody, and everybody should be okay, and also um, almost because I didn't know, I denied this part of me actually
mm,
for the longest time, that when it came time for it to be evoked and everything gets awakened at some point somewhere along the way, it was almost like, what's this, like, oh wow, there's this an alien living inside of me, like, who has a completely different way of seeing things. And why have I been living my life this way all this, why didn't I say this before? But I didn't have the guts to, because I just was quite sort of comfortable with that kind of status quo, because it was just comfortable. Everybody's okay, everybody's calm, everybody's good, everybody's, because when you find your voice, right,
mm,
you're probably going to say things that people don't like, or you might say things that's different or it's controversial, and most of the time we want everything to kind of just be like this, right?
yeah.
And I think in the baby steps of finding your voice, you will say a lot of things that are just, and then as your brain and your heart and your everything matures, and you take all these things, and you're giving yourself a point of view, right?
Mm,
And that has come with time. But I definitely was quite inward. I used to read a lot as a kid as well, but I had forgotten all this part of me while I was so busy sort of performing for the world. And
mm,
I think you kind of come back to yourself quite often. You might
yeah.
have started being very let's say, introspective, because you read and you escape into these other worlds and you're curious, and then life kind of takes over and you go into all these different kinds of routes, and then you come right back to yourself. And so for me, if I look at my life as a kid, introspective, definitely. Nobody really encouraged it in me. I was more encouraged to kind of sort of be out there and kind of be the happy, funny performer girl. And I went through that whole thing. But inside of me, there was always this, I have this opinion, but I'm too shy to share it. I have this other way of thinking, but I don't have the guts to talk about it. And then as time has gone on, it's like, well, now actually, I am comfortable in my body. I'm comfortable in my opinion. And even if I get shot down by 500 people, so long as it wasn't there to hurt, harm, to deface, to really break somebody, then it's just an opinion, you know. And I think every opinion, it should go through that filtration system, you know. Are you trying to break somebody with this? Are you trying to be an asshole about this? Are you trying to disrespect somebody? What are you trying to do? If none of that is intended, go ahead and speak. You know, put yourself through the filtration system. I think that's super important, because, and then the other thing I wanted to bring up is something you said earlier. There are millions of different kinds of voices, millions, and there should be room for all of them. But what happens is that a lot of the times it's just popular thought. I mean, that's what social media is, right? It's an algorithm of popular thought. And, you know, when we don't give enough to the variety, there isn't texture to the world in which we live in. Even if it's a wrong and a bad thing that someone is saying, sometimes you need to hear it to know that it even exists as a thought, that it exists, that it can come out of a human being, you know, and to not be so shocked about everything, but to be able to take all of these things together and then filter out the weeds and kind of say, okay, here I am with this collection of thoughts and ideas. Because I guess for me, everything keeps evolving. Everything keeps changing. The way I thought 5 years ago, the way I thought 5 weeks ago has evolved because of the fact that there's so much information there available. But then I have to weed out the things that really resonate and the things that really don't resonate. And I have that right as a human being. Of course, when it comes to very big things that are happening in this world, that I need to read more and more and more and see more and more and more, because not everything is my experience. And I think that's where people talk about privilege. That's where people talk about, you know, don't say that you're anti-racist if you're not willing to actually listen to people to whom this has happened day in and day out to them. And that then informs you and gives you a better and a deeper understanding of things. That doesn't mean that you don't have an opinion, you know, but the world in which we're living in right now, it's kind of making people kind of a bit afraid to say stupid things. Like, there's no place to say a stupid thing. If you don't say something that's super like evolved and woke, there's no space for you. And I feel that pendulum has swung so far. And so the speaking of your truth it's like you're speaking the collective's truth, and you almost can't bear to speak your own truth. And maybe you've had a really bad experience, but there's no space for it because everyone is speaking in the same way.
I'm saying that, you know, with a lot of people, I think now with social media, with like what you say, it starts to cultivate this thing. It's either you're with me or you're against me. But there shouldn't be that way, because there is a lot of gray in between black and white. There are different shades of gray, and it doesn't mean that, you know, I don't agree with you with this. It means that you and I we're not going to get along well, just because this is an opinion on a certain matter. And then and like what you said just now, there is, even in mental health as well, a lot of people says, oh, this is normal, this is not normal. But a normal is just means statistically a lot of people is there. That doesn't mean that the rest of them are abnormal. So we need to have kind
Yeah.
of like have got more rooms for other people, other opinions, and like what I think we have come back again and again. It's more of not really about what it's the intention and the value behind the voice. If you're saying this,
Yeah.
and what is it that why are you saying this? Are you trying to put somebody down, like what you said? Or I'm saying this from a place of love because I want my opinion to be heard because I think this is a cool opinion. Then by all means say it. But what was the intention behind it that matters so much?
Yeah. And watch your words as well, you know.
Mm,
This whole find your voice and speak the truth can have an opposite effect as well, right? Like you have to, I do think that it's okay to kind of watch your words a little bit and kind of say, because we're being reactive versus we're actually being thoughtful about a lot of things, because there's so much urgency in the world, you know. And I don't want to say that, oh, I don't understand what's going on in the world, or that I'm blind to what's happening in the world and the amount of injustice that there is. It's enough to make you vomit on a daily basis. But I think there is a way to watch your words a little bit and watch things unfold, and learn, versus always have to jump in there and always have to have the first opinion and always have to be the person who knows it all, because there isn't a person on this earth who knows it all. We all know parts and bits, you know, and I think that is something useful to remember. And I've had to remind myself that I've gotten into a few scraps online, you know, where I walk in with what I think is my voice of reason, and others are like, you're a dumbass because you don't get how urgent and important this is. And I'm like, no, actually, I do get it, but is there room for this? You know, and I think making room, whichever side and whichever there's a lot of extremism of opinions.
yeah.
And I think you need that, but then you also need something happening in the center of that. You know, if you could visualize, and that is what I was saying earlier, you know, going to accurate, good sources of information, which is so hard now to decide who's accurate, who's good, but having a variety of sources, having a variety of conversations is what moves things along. If you're only going to have one conversation and only one kind of finding your voice, I don't think it moves conversations along, and it doesn't move a cause along either.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
And that's what makes connection so great, because if everybody kind of react in the same way, has the same opinion, then they take away the joy of being
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I learned in the last few weeks, doing some somatic work on myself, is that there are so many labels in the mental health umbrella. You know, so many labels of what you are, and you know, your mental health can be just a hashtag. And we're very quick to find the label, because I guess what we're trying to do is we're trying to resolve something. Oh, it must be this. So we're trying to resolve it. And that's the same thing that I apply to, you know, activism and advocacy and all of those things. Sometimes we are applying the same dynamic to it because we really want this pain to go away. We don't want people to feel this way anymore. We really do want to help the world. I think every human being has that in them altruistically. But we are sometimes skipping over things and bypassing certain things in order to get to that spot. And when we do that, whether it's for ourselves or for the world out there, I think we lose out on a process, and we lose out on certain rites of passage that we need to have, be it personal rites of passage, public rites of passage, country rites of passage, that then can take us to the next levels.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I know this is not a popular opinion, because I think a lot of people would be like, no, we need to push it and shove it, and absolutely, I think that's also needed, but we need both of these things.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think sometimes we push for things a bit too hard, forgetting that it takes time and it takes the process. It will, yes. So even now with some of like mental health campaigns, for an example, I'm all for, you know, changing the mental health, but is putting mental health all out there and says, right, we're going to talk about this, we're going to be raising awareness. Is this all going to be helping, or is it actually going to shun, that people are shunning away more from topics like this
Yeah.
because it's all over my face?
Yeah. And
So,
also what I think it does is that it's putting a lot of stuff out there that all sort of sounds the same. So then we don't get to the middle bit, you know, we don't get to the crunchy bit, we don't get to the blood and the guts of things. And it's just sort of very repetitive things that just go on and on and on. But also it's this medium, right? This medium doesn't really allow for any more like really sort of in-depth type of ideas to be shared. When Facebook came out, it was a lot of long form. You know, you could write notes and stories and all those kinds of things. And then as time has gone by, our capacity for the information has just gotten smaller and smaller.
yeah.
And I want a quickie, you know, we're all guilty of this. But without understanding that, just like with life, you learn progressively. You don't learn always so dynamically. Sometimes you can do things to circumvent, and you can learn take a big leap. But then you still have to practice the thing that you've learned, right? So that applies to what we're talking about as well. I mean, earlier on, you had talked about like what were there certain things that people who are listening in take away, and I had said, you know, read widely and listen widely, and also continue to try to walk to the beat of your own drum, but also be willing to change sometimes the beat of your own drum if the beat of your own drum has been informed by a super sort of narrow vision. You know, try to make a bigger drum and make a slightly bigger noise, you know, to use the analogy of a drum. Or try to change the drum and say, how does this feel? This might be a bit more comfortable. And we do that through interaction with other people. We do that through interaction with people who have opposing opinions, because it makes us stop and pause. Even the other day I was in a plant store, and there was a gentleman who's a guest worker. Clearly, he was new because he hasn't mastered how to kind of balance his own language with English in Singapore, right? And then a lot of the nurseries have a lot of men from Bangladesh who are just really, really good horticulturalists. Like, they're great with plants. And this gentleman was quite young, and he's new, and he was struggling. And he was talking to a lady who herself doesn't speak English as her first language, but she was super dismissive of him and just very, actually quite racist, you know. And I was just there and observing this whole thing. And my activist, advocate, but also just as a human being, I was on it, man. I jumped into the fray. I was like, don't talk to this guy this way, you know, the whole 9 yards. And then after a while, I was like, what was it that drove me there? My sense of righteousness.
Yeah.
But I could have done it a different way, but because at the end of the day, the lady, she couldn't understand what I was talking about. And to her, it didn't matter what I was talking about, because she felt that she had the right to be annoyed with this guy because he didn't speak English. You know, I could see this whole thing happening. And then I was kind of, I'm going to circumvent this, I'm going to like stand up for this guy, and you know, and then when I took a step back, I realized that the situation was there was more going on there that I, as one person, was able to actually change. So what I did was I went to speak to the supervisor, and I said, you know, you need to protect the people that are working here from this kind of stuff, you know. And that's when I began to realize that so often we just assume that because we are empowered and we have the language of empowerment, other people are empowered. And this gentleman looked at me, and I could see that he just had zero power to do any of this. You know, so that man was going to suffer. This man is also suffering. I have gone in there and like about this stuff, but actually nothing is actually going to change, even though I have this strong voice and everything else. So perhaps there could have been a different way in which I could have done this. I don't know what it is. Rather than this reactive thing, I want to save this man from the onslaught of this lady.
Yeah.
And I realized that at the moment, these are kinds of things that we do online as well. We are trying to be good to each other. We're trying to, I want to save you. I don't want shit to be said to you. But we don't really understand the full, sometimes, context of what is actually happening.
Yeah.
Because we're just doing it in those moments.
Yeah. But also, sometimes we gotta be really compassionate with ourselves as well, because it is that immediate effect that, you want to jump in and
Yeah.
help someone. Probably don't have a few seconds to, wait and look and see it happen a bit
Yeah,
longer.
and really evaluate things. Oh my God. I mean, I've done it so many times now that I'm like, okay, one of these days you might be wrong. But yeah, I get it. I mean, I realize I'm saying things and then I'm turning around and saying there's another side, because nothing is linear, right? There's always two sides, and then there's the truth, and how he saw it and how I saw it. And, I could see all these things. And in the end, it was like, okay, I learned a lot from just this exchange here. Could I have maybe used my voice to make this young gentleman feel a little bit better about himself and ignore this lady because I can't change her in this one moment? Could that have been a better way of circumventing this situation?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a continuous learning. I think that's one of the biggest takeaway that I want, the people that tuning in to know as well. Sometimes when we want to find a voice, we go on like hit strong. We're gonna find a voice. It's not like I'm gonna sit here now and I'm gonna be evaluating what's my value, and the next moment I'll know what I am born for, what's my truth. It's a continuous experience, a continuous growth, and so with let me look at the time. All right, so we're in about an hour into it now. I'm not sure if Instagram
We
pick
just
it.
got an hour. We're probably going to get thrown off. We're going to get thrown off any moment. Any moment. If we get thrown off, we're just going to get back on. Yeah, you're absolutely right, though, Marilyn. It is and the reason why I found it quite almost challenging to give you like super direct answers and like 6 things to find your voice, because it's not linear. It's things that happen over time. It is about what wisdom you bring into your words and into your language. But ultimately, your voice is a reflection of your soul. It's a reflection of what you really believe in. And that can also be, that can also have a downside. If the reflection of your soul is to be a racist, well, that's your little soul, you need to probably wake up a little bit, or maybe, what reflects from your soul is that you just want everybody to get along. There's all these different kinds of things. And I think as long as we stay open to learning and stay open to other people's opinions and make space for that, that allows us to have a more thoughtful way of using our voice. And by that, I don't mean always verbalizing, but even the way that we write and the way that we interact with people and the way that we talk to strangers and the whole thing.
Yeah, that that's a little so. Yeah, I think that's really reflective. And just to summarize what we have talked about, it's voices are going to be a continuous growth, but we know the direction. You need to spend some time really reflecting why you're doing certain things, looking into what's your value, what's your intention, and like what you say, to also read more and be more aware about other people's, because sometimes we have got opposing that opinion with somebody, but we don't understand where the social context, the culture is from. So when we start to understand that, we suddenly understand why they are reacting in a certain way, because we hold different values. And so when we
to give that space to people, even when we don't like them, even when we don't agree with them, I think that there's some value in that.
Yeah, and it's often not just for that conversation or for the other person, but it also gives us a sense of, all right, I shouldn't be angry with him because he's doing it because of that value. It's a letting yourself go as well.
Yeah. Because how many battles do we fight? There are big battles to fight, and I'd rather keep my energy for those big battles and lend my voice to those big battles. To inequality and sexism and racism.
just got kicked out.
No, but you know, we've been having a really long conversation, and I'm so aware that I feel so rambly. But sometimes I in the past I would always have like really ready answers to this whole thing. But I know that in my own journey to kind of find my voice, that it was really about taking off the mask, peeling back the layers, and saying, well, what am I really trying to say here? What do I really stand for? What do I really believe in? And evaluating that over and over again. And with all the things that are out there, all the information that's out there, you bring that into your evaluation, your self-evaluation, and kind of say, what, well, you know, I had this opinion. Does it really still hold up anymore? Versus, I have this opinion and it better be the same as everybody else's opinion, or I don't count for anything. You know, because the world out there, there's a lot of, as I said before, there's a lot of extreme ways of thinking. And if you're not with me, you're against me kind of thinking that comes from both the left and the right. And I kind of want to be in the middle, not because I am, you know, I don't have the guts to be on either side, but because each side is not giving any leeway. So therefore, somewhere in the middle is where I can take the best of both of these things and bring them together, you know, and use that path forward. And that's just my way. It doesn't have to be the way for everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you know, probably even for a chat like this, there will be people that wants to go in to listen to a chat and be like, all right, I need practical tips. But then, but today, like what we are doing at the moment, it's more of like a conversation, you know, to tell everybody that you don't really need to be either this or that, but you can be in between. It is not really you're gonna do this in order to find these things, but it is through growth. And I think that's one thing that we are also walking our talk as well.
Yeah, exposure, curiosity, room for other people to speak, valuing more than just your own opinion or your tribe's opinion. You know, all of these things I think grow us, they grow our brain, because, you know, depending on whether you live as if this is the only life, or you've had past or future lives, this is the only life that you know right now. And so do you want it to be like this, expansive, or do you want it to be like this, contracted?
Yeah.
For me,
Yeah.
I was living a lot with a very contracted kind of viewpoint, and working in that way, and I didn't want to do that anymore.
Okay, let's see if we have got any kind of like questions popping up for you. But you know, I wanted to ask you this, you know, kind of like to wrap up this session as well. You know, through this transition, because I'm very curious in speaking to you. You know, when from the whole journey from you, I keep going back to, you know, your transformation through this journey from being you know, someone that you are out there, people see that you are nailing life, but yet you feel like a void in there, to transforming it to someone that more cautious, more not cautious, but more aware, more mindful about the way that you speak, the intentions and stuff. There in this whole transformation, there is fear that you were saying, that, you know, you're scared of, you know, how other people's gonna look at you, or there
Yeah.
is gonna, like, it takes the courage. And how do you get through that? Because one of the questions that I wanted to ask was, you know, how do you manage self-doubt even through this journey? How do you know that, how do you, like, what kind of feeling is it that you knew that this is what you're supposed to do, or this is the way?
Yeah, I think that the greatest way to know that what is your way and everyone's way is unique is that you're not harming anybody. And that, you know, it is coming from a soulful place. And by soulfulness, I mean that you want the best and you want the best outcome, and you want the most fair outcome. And that applies to anything in life, right? That it is about, it's not about taking, it's actually about giving. It's about expansiveness. And I think then you know that you're doing the right thing. When you're doing something from a standpoint where it's just about winning, it's just about gaining, it's just about for you, it's only for your life, then that's not truthful. So if we look at everybody as part of the same journey, as in every human being, if every human being was to see life that way, I think we'd be living much more happy and pleasant lives, and we would want to take less and we would want to give more. So that's how I think you know when you're on the right path, that it doesn't bother you about what you get. It kind of bothers you that you're not actually giving, you know, and that you're also okay with not turning on the faucet 24/7 and give until you fall apart. That there is this lovely little balance. And I think the other way that you know that you are finding your voice and speaking your truth and finding your esteem and your confidence is that when you speak with a knowledge that comes from wisdom, and it doesn't come from just that you grabbed a few things together and kind of like made it yours, that it really is yours. This is how you really feel, believe. And I think that also applies to when we want to change the world and we want to shock the world and we want to, and there's a lot of people out there who are really great at just shocking the world into change. They're fantastic when it comes out of their mouths. But I think that they have given it a lot of thought too. They didn't just sort of wake up one day and say, I'm going to say this to the world and the world is going to change. No, they've been thinking about this a long time. And what is driving them actually is an energy, and the energy is of good. It's of change. It's of bad things are happening, I need to make it right. Or great things are happening, I need to amplify this. But when we are coming from a good, good is such a terrible word, isn't it? When we're coming from a place of wanting better things for people out there, then I know that I'm in the right place, and I think every human being knows that they're in the right place.
Okay, that's great. That's great. And yeah, so let's pop on and see again if there is, because I don't want to be taking too much of your time as well. And
this is great. I think the first 20 minutes was us just sort of trying to find our way through it, and then we got there, and then we got thrown off.
And then we got thrown.
There was somebody who just wanted me to take my glasses off. I mean, I don't understand what that's about, but it's a great conversation, and thanks for sharing. Thank you. Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah.
We're pure little souls.
I personally kind of want to also ask you, like, if now there's now somebody, like, or just me, and then I come to you and says, right, Anita, I always feel that, you know, what I'm doing, like maybe I'm in an industry that is doing something that I don't agree with, or let's just say my supervisor, he is very racist and I don't like it, but I want to tell him to make my voice heard, but I'm not sure how to do it, or maybe I'm not right because everyone else is doing this, but not me. So how would you encourage this person to speak out despite knowing that, you know, we know that there is this fear, maybe I'm doubting that, you know, if I'm doing this I might lose my job, but how would you encourage someone like that is a bit hopeless or a bit helpless?
You're asking the person who would jump into every given situation in which I see injustice on how to do that in a work environment. This is a good one. Okay, I have to think about this. This is what I believe. This is what I truly believe. There are some things, there are some injustices that you should never shut up about, ever, 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 ever. I think there's still a way in which you can do it, you know, but and that's just really about voice modulation but making sure that the message gets across. I think it's about taking a stand quite often in life, right? That this is something that you just, I do not support this, and it doesn't matter if that person is your supervisor or your boss. I think that if it's something you truly believe in, then you have to also understand that you could lose your job. But what's worse? Standing by and letting something awful happen, you know, so that you can keep your job, or standing up for somebody and something. I think this is really important. Again, of course, there's ways in which you can say these things. And, you know, the other thing I've been noticing quite a lot of is that because of social media, you get to see a lot of the ways in which, like a little bit of that kind of the pushback, and you get to see what sorts of different kinds of pushback there is in this world, and how people argue, and you can learn quite a lot, even though it can be quite toxic. You can learn quite a lot about the way if someone is being like a little bit narcissistic, or somebody is just being really horrible and unkind, and you can see how people respond and react, because if somebody feels like they've been shamed, they are just going to go for it, right? So I think you learn a lot about the way humans are with all these interactions, right? So I would say that if you're in an office environment and something vile is happening, it is your duty to stand up and say, I do not like this, I do not believe in this, and this is happening. And making sure that you speak to the right people about it. But with the possibility of discovering that the company that you work for doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
And then you will have the option to stay or go, or be asked to go. And whatever happens, if it's asked to go or you stay and they make your life miserable, know that you've gotten yourself into a situation that was going to be toxic anyway. Or, as in with some companies, immediately they will address the issue, they will address it openly, and that's the difference between a company that, you know, the term gaslighting, right? Gaslighting doesn't just apply just to individuals, it applies to organizations too, and it applies to the people who are running the organizations as well. You can see immediately, and then you have a choice, stay or go, you know. And I think that we sometimes look at it from the other side. Oh, if I speak, things are going to the shit is going to hit the fan. If you don't speak, and you know what you're speaking about is absolutely right, can you live with yourself? That you didn't step in there, that you didn't do the thing that was right, you know. And I think when it comes to things like sexism, sexual misconduct, racism, you know, all the isms, right? Ageism, all that. We like to believe that there are shades of gray, but there really aren't. It's very clear, you know, because you feel uncomfortable, you're made to feel uncomfortable, you see something being done to somebody else, and quite often there's humiliation involved. So we know as human beings that this just does not feel right. So standing up for that and standing up for somebody else is an act of service. And in an act of service, we have to let go of the possibility that we can do that and still, maybe we're still in a safe space. We're not, because we expose ourselves, we expose the other person, we expose the problem, which is the disease or the wound, and there will be repercussions. If you're in a company or a situation or a relationship or whatever, a friendship, in which the other party is not willing to take any of the information on board. And then you have to deal with the consequences, I think. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I think it does, because obviously, I think this is a cultural thing as well, still, that we do feel unempowered at some point to voice out boundaries or our needs. And I think it's like what you're saying, that maybe that's also a bit about, you know, privilege, where maybe if it is for me and I'm working for someone, the risk that I am taking is not high, because if I voice out and my boss fires me, then that's fine, I can find another job. But I do find it in like a lesser privilege, where, you know, I used to talk to some of like domestic helpers, where, you know, they have got a lot to do for voicing out. And you point out a really good point as well, like, you know, whoever that's tuning in, like, if you don't find that yourself is safe in voicing out, it is very important for you to find the right person to talk to. Like, you know, to an organization that's going to back you up.
That's it. And you brought up a really good point, because there are always people who are in weaker positions. And then it's left to all of us to stand up and do the right thing and help and empower the persons. And then I think the next stage of that is that the person has to become empowered. You know, my ideal world is that if a woman or a man decides to take on a menial job and become a guest worker in another country, that they are respected for the work that they do, and that every step of that chain is respect driven, and that it's not to take It's to give something, because without these men and women, many things would not be happening. But that's not what happens. And I totally get what you're saying. And when we speak in terms of corporate office or our privileged lives and all of that, what agency does a domestic worker have in a family that might be bullying her or hurting her or beating her? You know, all these things are there. So then I think it is about as many of us that will stand up and jump into those fights with the idea to change the way this is operating. It's not just to have the fight, which goes back to what I'm saying earlier about we're having a lot of fights, but did we really move the cause forward, or are we just all having a fight with our egos? So can we drop our ego, and can we see things for what they are, and can we actually step into those things? And that's, I think, then the alignment of I'm coming from a soul purpose. I'm coming from this is not right. I need to help this, and I don't care what's going to happen to me, but I care what's going to happen to you.
Yeah. Oh, that's really
we're talking about different things, right? But ultimately, we're talking about the same thing. Can we use our voice to stand up for other people? Can we use our voice to stand up for ourselves? Will we? What does that feel like? How does that sound? And only we know, because we're also damn unique. I can't stand up for somebody in the way that you would stand up for someone. I can't use the same language because it's not my language. It's not my experience. But I can know the difference between right and wrong. And I can know that I can take a chance. And as scared shitless as I might be, I will take a chance. I'm never going to stop jumping into those situations. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to read them a little bit better. Like, what's really going on here? What's happening? And what can I do? How can I infiltrate this? Because in this moment, I'm in a position where I feel that maybe I can say something. But at the same time, I got to watch my ego. Who says he asked me for help? He didn't ask me for help. Right?
Yeah.
And there I am, like, oh, yes, I'm going to help this guy. But he didn't ask me for help. Or is he helpless? You know, you have so many things you got to think about because we're dealing with humans. We're not dealing with robots. We're not dealing with two-dimensional characters here. You know? Yeah. But I thank you for broadening that and, you know, making me remember that not every situation is alike. Not everybody is in a position where they are able to exert personal power. Not everybody has been empowered. You know? And I think when it comes to the situation of, let's say, domestic or guest workers, there are so many people involved in bringing that one person here. And if along that whole entire chain there isn't empowerment, then there's just going to be disempowerment all the way. From the moment the person is recruited to the moment the person arrives, it's all disempowerment. You know? So you need governments, you need embassies and high commissions and all of these people with the agency to kind of say this is not acceptable. You know, you cannot treat our people this way. Our people are coming here to do jobs for you. And I think when we start to talk this way and we take responsibility for things, there's a kind of a magic and a different thing that happens, because then we are standing up for ourselves, because having a voice is also standing up for yourself as much as it is standing up for causes, right? And then you realize that, I don't know if you've ever noticed that when you finally stand up for yourself, how it feels, it's scary. But then you keep standing up for yourself and it feels better and better and better. And why should that be your privilege only? It should be everyone's privilege.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's great chatting with you, and it really did bring back, you know, how even for me, how, you know, sometimes when you see somebody even inconsiderate in an MRT, when I was younger, I feel, you know, I want to tell this person that, you know, you can't do this, but still I'm so scared about doing it because how we don't stand up for ourselves. And then the first time when I started to do it, I remember I was just literally shaking after that. But it kind of like comes on more and more, and because other than the shaking, after that you feel so good about yourself. You feel so good that you actually make you actually did something instead of just
Yeah.
letting it go by without doing anything. And one thing that you said that kind of like stuck in my head now is that if this is a decision that you can live with. And I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a decision that you can live with, and how does it make you feel? And you know that it may not be the most popular decision. It may not be the decision that um, is the calm decision. It may not be the decision that everyone else thinks that you should make. But that's when you know that if it's coming from the right place, and you know that you're trying to help something, somebody, and help yourself in a good way, then you're making the
Mm,
right decision.
yeah, that is great. Really great that
We've only
we
we've only talked for an hour and a half. Oh my god, that's crazy. Ah!
Let's have a look. Like, no, yeah. So everyone is gonna be like, some of them says, yeah, you can be anything. You gotta be kind. And oh, I saw one of the comments just now. Uh, yeah, but yeah, that's all from me today. I really want to thank you again for kind of like connecting, and I thank everyone for tuning in as well. I hope there's some takeaway somewhere here or there for everyone that sits here with us for an hour and a half.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, and if no one got any takeaways, then that's okay. Maybe it's just food for thought and ways in which to think about things in a different way. Because I think that these processes, it's hard to have immediate takeaways. I think we have to sit with some of these things to kind of think, well, yeah, there are so many different aspects to actually finding and holding your voice. And, you know, um, it does start with our own self-esteem and how we feel
Mm,
inside, and what empowers us. And I think if
yeah,
we don't feel very empowered, or we don't feel we have a high health self-esteem, and no one's going to listen to anything that we have to say, then we need to check in with ourselves. And also we should ask ourselves, are we just trying to say things that are popular, or are we trying to say things that we really feel and we really believe
yeah,
in?
yeah. That's lifelong learning, and it's never stopped. But yeah, thank you so much. Like I've got like little notes of what you said, and I just kind of like drop it down, and then I'm gonna spend the rest of the day kind of like think about it. But it's great. It's great.
Reflecting. Good.
We connected. We have this on. We're gonna keep this on Instagram. We're gonna put it on Spotify as well. If there's one day you're just bored and you want to listen to it, and you might spot some aha moment here and there, that's good for you.
Yeah.
If not, yeah, thank you so much again for joining me, and thank you everyone as well. Um, yeah, I hope you have a good day, and you really deserve like a real rest now because of all your back-to-back talking. Now you need your own space, like what we talked about
Yeah,
last time.
I just need to stop talking and really literally find my voice again. So thank you so much, Marilyn, for allowing me to have this super circular conversation and bring out all of these different kinds of things. And, I knew it was never going to be kind of a linear thing. And I hope that it's been useful, and it's made me really happy to be able to have this chat with you.
Yes, same here. Okay, I'll keep in touch with you, and have a good rest. Good night. Bye bye.
Good night. Say bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye everyone.